episode of Cali and Craig Talk. I'm Cali,
And I'm Craig.
and today it's like a super duper special
Yes,
episode.
it
Yes,
is.
it is because this is our 1 year anniversary of Cali and Craig Talk.
Yeah, happy 1 year pod anniversary cast.
Thank you.
Podcast anniversary would make more sense than pod anniversary
I was
cast.
gonna just say happy podcast anniversary, but I guess that works. Podcan. What did you say? Podcast anniversary. I said.
Pod anniversary cast.
Yeah, pod anniversary cast works. Podcast anniversary works. I like that
Yeah.
too. So, as a special treat, we're bringing back our first guest. Someone could say our favorite guest, right?
Well, I'm a little
Well,
biased, I guess.
yes, yes. So we have John Robin is here with us.
hmm
Hmm
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
We never practice who's gonna say what when, so it's okay, it's fine. We're gonna take it easy
hmm
tonight. No cuts to this episode either. I think
No.
I'm just gonna let it roll tonight. Let's just see what happens. Whatever happens. So that means don't say anything you shouldn't say. Mostly me. I'm usually cutting myself. It's usually never you guys.
hmm
All right, but thank you, John, for being here with us. We're super excited to have you back for our podcast anniversary.
I
Whatever
like
we want
pod
to call it. What are we,
anniversary. I think we
writers?
have to start using that one on in
It
context.
it feels like with three writers in the room, we should be able to call it the right thing. What should we call it, John?
Podcast anniversary is I think is that what you said originally, but that would make sense. But I kind of like podcast anniversary. It's got me wondering what that would
Podcast.
mean. Like it's not the right word, but it's just that's an interesting thing. On the what is that? What would that?
Yeah.
Someone put
So
that in a book. What would that mean?
a podcast anniversary. I don't really know. But for funsies, we'll touch on some of the stuff that we touched on when you were first here and toss in some new stuff too. So we'll have to get to some werewolves and some vampire talk in a little bit. Well, yeah. They're always fan favorites for me. I love talking about werewolves and vampires all the time.
hmm
Actually, I
hmm
don't, Craig, we really don't talk about vampires and
No, we
werewolves
don't.
that
I was like,
much.
oh, you love talking about that? That's kind of news to me.
That's
Yeah.
news to me because we talk to each other 19 hours a day. I think we talked about werewolves and vampires 3 times. No.
Yeah. Thereabouts.
Yeah. All right, John. But we are gonna borrow you and your super great brain to help the people at home with writing the best possible query letter. You
Okay.
think you can help people out with that?
Oh yeah, I love doing that. It's my
Yes.
favorite work actually when I get to help people with that.
Yeah. So when we read query letters, I think that we're all looking at the same thing, but we might all be looking for different things.
Hmm.
So what do
Mhm.
you look for when you see a query letter?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all down to the strength of the manuscript. So the query letter should really make me want to read the jump to the manuscript. And so normally the thing that stands out is when the premise is very clear and it's interesting.
Mhm.
I have to say the opposite side, it seems to be the case. Like it's mostly I can see where there's just so much in the way, so that premise is not shining. So if anything, I think writers need to be aware of all the various things to not do
Mm,
to let the premise shine. Because I think a lot of times there is something very interesting about what they're writing, but there's all sorts of don't do things that
yeah.
you learn that take it away, you can make your book shine more in the query letter and right away. So
I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to pick out the do's and the don'ts with you so you can help people because
mhm,
there are a lot of don'ts that I definitely see.
mhm.
And there's a lot
Mhm.
of do's, and I'm like, oh, those are really great. So which one would you rather start? Would you rather start with the don'ts or the do's?
Well, we should probably start with the don'ts because that list is probably longer.
Yeah, I think it probably is. Yes. All right. So you tell me the number. Let's go. They don't necessarily have to be in order because, for listeners at home, we don't really prepare John for what we're going to talk about. So John just comes in here. He's the best sport possible and he just rolls with it. So he doesn't have a list of things. So he's
Hmm.
just going to name them off as they come to him.
Yeah.
So let's give me the list of don'ts for query letters.
Okay. I mean, I guess one thing to keep this somewhat orderly, it's not necessarily going to be a a well-honed list. But it's good to realize the query letter has three parts to it. You have an opening paragraph, which is like your hook. It's your chance to kind of get their attention. And so there's a few things you want to make sure you have there. And so there would be don'ts that apply to that. There is the middle of the query letter, which is basically and a really well written one. It's going to be what would be on the back of your book and would sell your book in a bookstore. So like the blurb that would, like that's usually the middle. You go right into that. And then the end of the query letter is the bio information. So no more than a paragraph, just who you are. And so the don'ts really could apply to those, and maybe to start with a meta kind of don't write a query letter that doesn't follow that format, because sometimes people is this long list of, it's not, I can tell right away, okay, there's no awareness of the standard way to query letter. So it opens with, I've written this great book and I would really like you to publish it. And as soon as I start seeing that, there's they're just writing me a letter. It's not a business proposal, but a query letter is a business pitch. So that's the first don't is don't break the rules and not do your research on how to write a proper query letter. So and actually
that is important.
This episode, you already have it. You don't have to go and research anywhere. There you go, 3 parts, and make
That's right. Okay, so in the beginning, we said the one thing we don't want to do already in the beginning is that. What else do we not want to do in the beginning?
So that would be the big picture stuff. But I mean, to just start in the opening, the hook, what you're trying to do there is just very basically lay out what your book is. And what I find the biggest don't there is people sometimes just put too much stuff. Yeah. And also I can tell they're not, like, don't try and impress I guess prospective publisher, agent, whoever you're submitting to. Don't inflate it. Don't put things in there because you're going to do more damage if you try and impress and it doesn't work. So a good example, sometimes people, they compare their book to something that's out there, and it's not even, it's like, okay, the obvious don't in this is don't pick Game of Thrones or some big mainstream thing that you just can't reasonably say you're going to compare to that, because those are big, rare phenomena, right? Like they aren't down to somebody conspired to make a really popular thing. But the other thing is sometimes people come up with fancy comparisons, like they'll say, I don't know, Terminator meets Frozen, Disney's Frozen, which but like just some bizarre thing that honestly, if somebody comes up with that in the right I kind of want to see that. Maybe that was
too now. That was great. Nobody can write it. John's gonna write it when the podcast ends. John's gonna start drafting it. So
like that's an example of the meets. So often you pick 2 things and say this meets this, or you give 2 styles, and sometimes people throw it out there, and it's like, okay, with that example, if someone put that, I mean, make sure, like, when I read the blurb and look in the manuscript, it should fulfill that.
Yes.
That's a very cool meets scenario, and I would love to see that story. But sometimes what people will do is throw those together because they know that it's like, oh, I'm going to come up with some comparison, but then it falls flat. You're like, huh? Or you go to look at the book. So really only do that if at the outset when you wrote your book, that's literally what inspired you. I mean, if you were like, I saw Frozen and I just imagined Terminators running around, and then well, of course, then that makes sense. But less is more. So if you don't have anything like that, just don't say it. All you need is the word count, the genre, the title of your manuscript, and really just kind of one sentence that gives the main core of the premise of the book, the main conflict, if you can summarize it in a sentence, and that's it. But so that's.
Do you like those, like, personally? Do you like when people do that? Because Craig and I see a lot of those that come in that are structured that way, that will say it's this meets this, or it's my take on this, and it will have it. And so I figure there must be something out there that people see that tells them that that's the way to write the query letter. So do you like it? Like, personally, do you like it when it has them like that? can I say can I say my feeling or I don't say it?
Sure.
Can I
Yeah.
say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
No.
dislike it. I don't like
Yeah.
it. Like whenever I see it, that doesn't mean that we won't, like, obviously we still read every single query that comes in, and that doesn't mean that we wouldn't take it or something. But for me personally, I don't like it because and the main reason is because I don't know half the stuff they're talking about.
Right.
Because a lot of times people will compare their book to another book
Yeah.
that they feel is very famous, but then like I
Yeah.
don't know it, or Craig doesn't know it, or you don't
Yeah.
know it. So it loses its effect. So like you've wasted time by putting that in because you're assuming that the publisher knows every single book that's ever been published. And that's just not true. We don't know every single book that's been published. So
Hmm.
like a lot of times when I see those, like it's just to me, it's a waste of time. Like you
Hmm.
could have had my attention sooner because now I read it and I'm like, Craig, do you know what this book is? And he's like, nope, I don't know what it is. I don't know if you know what it is, John, because I don't ever ask you. But for me, I don't really like that method too much.
No, I I have to say the majority of the time when I see it, it's where it belongs in that. It's why it's in this list of don'ts here because for the most part, I think a lot of people do it because and it's the same thing I was saying, people trying to impress you. So
Yeah,
don't try to like your story should be impressive on itself, on its own.
yeah,
And
yeah.
your goal in the query letter is to make a very transparent piece of glass that shows you exactly what's there. And as soon as you put parts of yourself in that letter, there's a risk that, if there's some, I don't know, just something that's a bit quirky or off or something, like they're gonna be like, like this person's pretty pretentious. They're comparing it to all these like great literary things. Like, I don't want to work with that person. Because
Yeah.
really, another way to think of the query letter is it's like a resume. You're applying for a job. It's similar principle. And the person, the publisher or agent, you're pitching to them saying, do you want to work with me? And I'm going to be the writer we're going to work together and maybe collaborate and improve the manuscript to help sell
Hmm.
it or whatever.
Hmm.
And you're
Hmm.
trying to convince them that this is a not just good writing, but someone that you want to work with. But
Hmm.
I have to say, for the most part, when people put that in there, I find very rarely I can I can take the comparison and see some validity in the blurb in
Hmm.
the manuscript. Mostly what I see is pretentiousness, and it's a red flag immediately when I see that. When I'm
Hmm.
reading a query letter, I'm usually looking for a reason to say no.
Hmm.
Because I mean, sometimes it's clear, yes, I'm jumping up and down. That doesn't happen
Hmm.
often, but
Hmm.
usually it's a maybe. But I kind of like when it's a clearer way to say no because I sometimes have a hard time if there's
Hmm.
sort of pros and cons. So in a
Yeah.
query letter, there are these sort of red flags that come up, and those help me.
Hmm.
Those help me kind of assess what
Yeah.
kind of person I'm dealing with, because the query letter is where you're writing. It's a
Yeah.
chance where you're going to reveal a bit of your personality and what kind of
Yeah.
person you are to work with. So if
Hmm.
I see someone who follows it perfectly and it's impressive, that tells me this is someone that cared to do their research.
Hmm.
They're not pretentious. They're humble. They're likely the kind of person that if I say, "Hey, can you do these edits?" they may they're yeah, I have good faith in that. So then it's
Hmm.
down to, is the manuscript itself strong? But yeah, so
Hmm.
that's
So,
why
so
those.
that's one of the big no-nos in the
Mhm.
beginning for our first section. Craig, you have any no-nos for the first section? Just the beginning part, not the middle and end, just the beginning?
Well, I think okay, so I think you mentioned the opening usually has a little bit of a hook, right? So are there do's, or we're talking about don'ts? Are there
Hmm.
don'ts when it comes to that hook? Right at that, because I know that with all the queries that we see, a lot of people put a lot of time and effort into that hook in the opening,
Hmm.
and sometimes they nail it, sometimes they don't. And I'm wondering if you have a don't for that.
Yeah, it'd be the same as the comparison thing. Like, don't try and be impressive, because a lot of
Hmm.
times it's sort of smoke and mirrors stuff to go, ooh, but then
Hmm.
when you think about it, it's like, actually, that really doesn't mean anything. Like,
Yeah.
that's like something I'd see in a high school essay. Like,
Yeah.
it's not impressive. So um that said, you do need to, and really the purpose of that hook is just, what are the characters' stakes? Like, what kind of story is this? Like, what would interest an agent. And so I think that one way to look at that hook is it's similar to what we do with the log line when we publish books, trying to get it down to a sentence that would be an interesting tweet or something, or an interesting
Yeah.
social media post
Mhm.
that sort of highlights something interesting about the conflict or the overall type of story that would just get someone interesting. So maybe if you imagine if your book was being sold and it was being featured on a I don't know, some kind of ad or
Mhm.
on some kind of show of why people should read it. What is that,
Mhm.
like one sentence? Like,
Yeah.
and that's actually very hard to come up with. So I
It
think
is hard to come up
I
with.
think the don't on that is, you don't want to just throw something up to be impressive, but you also don't want to half-ass it. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into coming up with a good blurb and that hook. And you should be thinking of it as if this was put on some kind of a ad somewhere, would people be like, oh, I need to click on that? And if
Mhm.
not, you're not done. And so it sort of ties into when people are querying, they often query too soon. And there's sort of certain things that just are half cooked. And so
Mhm.
that hook is one of those things. And you need to go through the right process to figure out how that is. Sometimes
Yeah.
it even means you have to radically overhaul your book, because what this reveals, you get to this stage and you're like, oh, okay, actually, I thought it was good, and I guess it's missing something. And you
Yeah.
need to figure that out before you submit, because the agents and publishers aren't going to do that. They're looking for something that shines and it's done. So
Mhm.
as much as it may pain you, you're like, I can't come up with it. That's where you start to think, well, is it maybe something in the book? And I mean, I
Yeah.
know we're going to talk about later on maybe synopsis and stuff,
Mhm.
because there are
Yes.
other ways to
For
get
sure. Yes.
book. So that's
Yeah.
for later.
Mhm.
So but definitely don't half-ass it, and don't send it off if you don't have something that's would make someone want to run out and buy your book, or click on the
Well,
link.
yeah, you should know what is unique about your book and what
Yeah,
you're gonna try, what the like how you want to sell your book and what
yeah,
makes your book special. And if you don't know
that's
what your
right.
book is about, but I will tell you, it is hard though. It
It's
is
hard.
hard
It's
selling your
very
book
hard.
in one sentence. It's hard
Yeah,
writing a blurb. It's hard
yeah.
writing, like, I mean, we do marketing, like Craig and I, we're doing that like all day long. And there's times where I'm like, I don't even know what to say for this person's book or for this book or for that book. And it's hard. You know, it is,
Mhm.
but you should know what your book is about and what makes it different. And the reason why
Absolutely.
you think the publisher should take a chance on it, you should know that. But
Hmm.
I think one thing for me, and I will say this, and I know we say this all the time, but I know that for us, for the publishing house, we, regardless of whether we think the query letter is good or bad, we always read the query letter,
Hmm.
we read every synopsis,
That's
and
right.
we always read a few chapters
Hmm.
as part of just the initial submission process. And then it
Yeah,
goes further. If you make it past that, then of course you read more. But
yeah.
we always do that, no matter what. Even if we get a query letter, we get it and we read it, and we read all three of those get done for every single query that comes in, no matter what. Even if it's a
Hmm.
clear no. Like
Yep.
there are some that come in that are, they clearly have not looked at the publishing house. They have no idea we're publishing. And like there's times they come in and I'm like, Craig, this is a clear no, right? And Craig's
Yeah.
like, I know, but we still look at it. I'm like, I
Mhm.
know, but it's, it's like a children's picture book or something. Like, because obviously we don't publish children's picture books. Maybe someday we will. But,
Mhm.
like sometimes we'll get a mismatch like that where someone's published asking for, say, and this is a terrible example, but say it's a children's picture book and they've submitted it to our erotica brand. Like Deep Desires Press is not going to publish a children's book,
No.
but we would still look at it to see how
Mhm.
the writing is and then possibly help guide that person somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that people know that, because despite our preferences for what we might think sounds good or what is good, that doesn't mean that every single query
Mhm.
doesn't get a fair shot, because every single query does get a fair shot.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's very true that like for us, we are we do a lot more, I think, to
Oh yeah.
supportive to writers. The
Hmm.
standard across publishing, and especially if you're going for agents, it's they assume that
No.
if you don't get them in the query letter, they may not even open your manuscript.
Yeah.
And then also it's like, assume if you don't catch them on sentence one, that's it.
Yeah.
Some of them are that ruthless. And in a way,
Mm-hmm.
it's good to prepare yourself for saying, would they make it past sentence one? Okay. Would they make it past
Mm-hmm.
one? Because it just
Mm-hmm.
gets you thinking that way. Because at the end of the day, your book's going to be in front of a reader who's got all kinds of stuff going on in their life. They don't have time to read a book. And they open your book and they read the first sentence and okay, screw everything. I'm okay. I'm reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Page one. Okay, just one more. Like that's what you're doing. You have to do that too. However many readers out there buy your
Mm-hmm.
book, you have to convince them to buy your book. So there's all these things that if you can shoot for the bar that high, that's
Yeah.
good. And I mean, in our case, we see a lot of queries that, yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even just reading it right away, it's like this is not going to. I right away, it's not going to be a yes. But
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
I'm always interested in just
Yeah.
who's this
Yeah.
writer and what have they pitched
Mm-hmm.
me like
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel this kind of deep empathy no matter what.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like I wish we had the time and resources to actually go in and help all like do more than just read and do a
Yeah.
rejection, like to just find out like
Yeah.
what's your background in writing, how can we help you? But
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, it pains.
Well, Story Perfect Editing can help with that.
That's right. That's what that whole site is
That's
about.
right. That's right.
People are submitting
Yeah.
they're like they're
No.
that's the thing is we are just making a decision to
Mm-hmm.
accept or reject, and
Mm-hmm.
we can't get into that side. But even if people were aware of that, not everyone has the budget for it
Nope.
or would prioritize it. They would just
Mm-hmm.
rather submit elsewhere. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's why it is a bit of a it's hard because I know I do that other work helping people with
Mm-hmm.
stories and I see it and I can only offer
Yeah.
so much because
Yeah.
submissions, it's not paid editing work, so
Yeah. But I do like that very much. It's one of the things that I love about working with the publishing house is that every single query gets looked at, every single
yeah.
synopsis is read, and
Yeah.
we always Craig and I read, and then it goes to you, who then you
Mhm.
do your thing. But like when they come in initially and we read them all, like we read every single one. There's one
Mhm.
thing that I do not like, and I will say this is just me, Callie, saying this. It's nobody else. Or you could say it if you echo it, that's fine. But I'm just saying this for me. I really dislike when a new writer or even an established writer comes in and in their query letter, they will put down other writers. Because I'm a
Mhm.
writer, Craig is a
Right.
writer, you are a writer.
Yeah.
So when you come in and you say, like, here's my pitch for, my troll werewolf monster erotica, and I write better than anyone else that you've ever read in the entire world, and my writing is better than yours, and that's it. Like I dislike when they come in right off the bat with that,
Mhm.
because I feel like it just rubs me the wrong way. So I don't know about you if that's something for you. Does that ever like impress you if someone comes in with that kind of
Oh,
an air, that kind of like, because like for me, that's an instant. For me, I'm like, okay, whoop,
yeah.
like I immediately because you can't take, you shouldn't. Okay, hold on. Let's be serious here. You shouldn't take things personally, but I always do. Like I am super sensitive. I should not be sensitive. I know I shouldn't, but I am. So like when someone says like, this is the best romance you've ever read. No one's ever written a sports romance like this, and all the other romances pale in comparison to this. I'm like, well, this better be one hell of a query.
Well,
But
yeah.
like at the same time, like I just dislike that because I feel like it tells me that that person is not going to be a great team player and they're not
Mhm.
going to be supportive of our other writers because they've already insulted me. They've insulted any other book and they've also insulted any other book that we've published. Forget
Mhm.
about my own book, but you're also saying that our catalog is
Right.
trash because your book is better than that. So for me, that's always like that's one of my big ones that when that comes in, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
boy, this is a way to start a query letter.
Mhm.
So I
No.
don't know.
No, I to me that's arrogance, and that arrogance turns me off. I mean,
Yeah.
even if it was a stellar book, I would, the problem right away when I see that is okay, if turns out that we want to change some things, is this
Well,
person
yeah, what's going to happen? Yeah, are you
there's a
going to
good
be
chance
open to it or
they're gonna
not?
have a meltdown and they're gonna say, I'm taking my work elsewhere because you can't appreciate me. Whatever, like but yeah, though that's and I have to say I can't think of any time we've ever got a query where there was that arrogance, and I've seen that arrogance lots of times, but where it was actually good. And
Oh, yeah,
almost
where it
all
was
the
actually
time,
good.
it
Yeah.
actually wasn't good. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, of course I mean, you think, you know,
There's a difference between
get roses
arrogance
or
and
something.
confidence. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? There's a
And
difference between projecting
well,
confidence and
yeah.
projecting arrogance. Like it's
Yeah.
okay to say like I worked really hard on this. I really think you're going to like it. I'm confident in what I've done.
Yeah.
But I mean, don't be too confident in what you've done because
Yeah.
you don't really know. Like, but again, you should be confident. You don't want
Yeah.
someone saying that they're not confident in their work. I'm just kidding. But there
Yeah.
is a difference between arrogance and confidence. So,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think of it as confidence plus humility. It's a nice blend. And that's,
mhm,
to me, if you're really confident, you don't need to brag. You don't need to, you know you've written something well, and it's almost like
mhm.
you can just present it and be like, I know this is good. So
Yeah.
I'm sending
What
this
was
on.
that thing, Craig? I saw that thing last week, or was it a couple weeks ago, where it said confidence is quiet and insecurity is loud. That was
Oh yeah,
I
that's
read
pretty
that.
accurate.
And I
That's
think that
very
that
true.
applies to
Yeah.
so many things. Well, it applies to me all the time. So so many things. But yeah, but I think that the same could be said for a query because you're letting the
Yep.
manuscript speak for itself
Yes.
instead of telling me like I do like that's the bottom part. That's where you talk about yourself. So I don't want to skip ahead to that. But there are
Yep.
also ways to,
Yep.
talk about yourself without overinflating
Sure.
the thing. Because again, yeah, I would let the manuscript speak for itself. So let me get us back on track. So for the beginning, that's what we know that we don't want to do, and we know what we do want to do. We did cover that,
I
right?
feel like the do's
I feel
will
like
come
we
up
did.
talking about the don'ts. That's kind of why I
Yeah.
thought it good to go on
Yeah.
the because the do's kind of are the
Yeah.
contrast that lay underneath the don't.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then the next one, Craig, what questions do you have for your husband about the middle?
So I'm not going to phrase this as a don't question. I'll just phrase
Mm-hmm.
it as a question. We have already talked about how difficult it is to summarize your story in a synopsis and then in a paragraph and then in a one sentence and then in a tweet. Um, when you're looking at that one paragraph summary of a story, what makes a good one paragraph summary? Like, what's a structure
Mhm.
to tell a good summary?
First of all, it wouldn't be a paragraph. It can be a few paragraphs. So it's good to just think of it as the
Yeah.
middle section.
And
Um,
this is the query letter.
this
I
is the
just want to
query
Yeah.
letter.
remind everyone, we're only on
Yeah,
the query
that's
letter.
right.
We're not on a synopsis yet. We're
That's
only on
right.
the query letter.
That's
Okay.
right. We're just talking about that,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be between 3 and 5 paragraphs. So if it's shorter paragraphs, it really just like at the end of the day, I would see the middle of your query letter as a separate side project you do before making as you're putting the query letter together. And that side project is write the blurb that you imagine on the back of your book that would
Mm-hmm.
that just like that one hook line needs to excite people to check this out. That needs to basically, if someone picked this up and read it, they're like, huh, okay. Like maybe they're going to flip open and see it if it pulls them in. It got them interested enough to not basically walk away. And there is an
Mm-hmm.
art to writing a good blurb. And I know we're going to get more into that, so I won't
Mm-hmm.
really get into
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
just keeping with our don'ts idea here, you definitely don't want to half-ass this one. This is going to be, even if you struggle to come up with a good hook,
Mm-hmm.
or you minimize it and you leave it out, or whatever you want to do in the first paragraph, this is
Mm-hmm.
the place where
Mm-hmm.
it needs to shine. Because
Yeah.
to an agent, well, okay, let's just take the agent example here. They need to be confident that they can show that to all kinds of marketing editors and people. They're going to read that, and they got to convince them at these meetings where they're brainstorming and planning. They need
Mm-hmm.
to convince them that this is the thing that's going to take everyone by storm. It's going to hit your market trend. It's worth
Mm-hmm.
taking on. They need to be confident of that. To us as publishers, or any if you're just submitting directly to a publisher that doesn't require an agent, they're imagining that book, them publishing it, and would readers be picking this up off the bookshelf and flipping it open, having loved the cover and the title and maybe a little ad that drew them in. Are they like reading this and now wanting to know more? So yeah, you want to make sure you follow the art of writing a good blurb in that. And I know I think we're gonna talk.
Yeah, we will. Yeah,
Later.
we'll get into the synopsis and stuff too. So
Yeah.
don't, I guess the biggest don't there would be well, I guess there's a lot of don'ts, but we don't want to leave out the main points of like the
Yeah.
main hook, and we don't want to
Right.
over explain. Because I know a lot of times we get a lot of over
Yeah.
explanation.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and another thing I'd say is don't give the end away. A
Oh,
synopsis, when we get to that, the synopsis does give the end away.
yes, yes, but
But
not in the
yeah,
query letter.
and don't make it read like a summary. Don't make it boring. Like that's unfortunately what time happens. And I mean, it all goes together with the don't half-ass it part. Like there's a
Mm-hmm,
whole art to it. But if you're just looking at a few bullet
mm-hmm,
points, what I see far too often is it's just very generic, and I can kind of tell
mm-hmm,
this wasn't really well thought out. Or I do wonder, is it that no, this is what the book's about,
mm-hmm,
but they didn't go further and say, okay, this is boring.
mm-hmm,
I need to figure out how to improve my book, because when I now summarize what's here, it's boring. So
mm-hmm,
make it interesting, then go to your book and do those revisions to make it match the blurb. And then come,
mm-hmm,
it's a bit of a process. So
mm-hmm,
if it reads boring or it's generic or it doesn't really seem exciting, then
mm-hmm.
that's not good.
No,
That's don't do that. I mean, that's going to
yeah.
be the query is, or the blurb in the query is the part that's really going to make the difference of the three
Yeah,
parts. It's the most
it
important.
is the most important part. Yeah. And then, so I would say that's probably about it for the middle then, right? I
Yeah,
think
because
that's about it.
to go in
Yeah.
further, we have to talk about
Yeah.
how to do that.
We're
We
going there next.
yeah.
We're going to go there
So
in a minute.
mhm.
Then the last part of the query letter is the ending.
Yeah.
So I know what number one thing we don't do in the ending is to lie about
Yeah.
how accomplished you are, and don't try to fool us with how accomplished you are, because we're going to look up what you sent to us. I can't tell you how many times I've seen myself where things are overinflated.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I personally like when it's honest and when there's a personal connection, when someone says, I wrote the story, it's special to me because blah, 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 and they're explaining that. I don't know if that's a don't or a do, but I personally like that. Do you like that, John? Is that a no?
Yeah, no, it's so the bio is tricky because there's a lot of it's hard to sort of say there's a like there's a it's a very fine line, let's put it like
Mm-hmm.
that, for whether
Mm-hmm.
something's appropriate or not in there. The biggest thing that I find though in the bio is it tends to be there's a lot of information, it just doesn't matter. I don't care if this is the fourth draft, or I don't care if you've worked with editors, like that doesn't matter to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really don't care what you do for your career if it has nothing to do with your book.
Mm-hmm.
So if you worked in a as an ER nurse and went to school with a criminal psychology degree, and your book is a murder mystery about someone doing murders in a hospital, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's where that's good. That's interesting, because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I can totally see the life that the experience you bring in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if there's something, basically what's in the bio, if you're going to go beyond the bullet points of this is my first novel, and I won this award, like if you actually won an award or you published a
Mm-hmm.
bestseller previously, or if you've worked in the industry, like that's interesting to me. If you've worked as an editor, or
Mm-hmm.
you've worked with a publisher, like
Mm-hmm.
those sorts of things could let me know a little bit about who are you as the writer. So where's your qualifications? So those could
Mm-hmm.
be two ways. It's either your
Mm-hmm.
qualifications as a writer, and then also your life experience that may make you qualified to write the kind of story you've written. But
Mm-hmm.
you know what? You don't need that to write it. Like say you're writing
Mm-hmm.
a romance novel, well, you don't have to have worked the career of those characters, because
Mm-hmm.
you're creative and you're able to create characters.
Yeah.
That's what writers do. So that's kind of
Yeah.
where less is more. If you don't have it, just don't put it in. I have
Yeah.
seen, like, I actually, well, I've helped a number of people with their query letters, and they were all debut, like it would be their debut novel if they got published, and it was really just this is my debut novel. That's it. And what that really shows is that you're not trying to impress, and you also get it. You know that nothing's impressive if it's not relevant down there. So there's no need to pad it with stuff.
Yeah. I think that that's hard because I feel like I can understand that feeling of wanting to impress, so you want them, you
Yeah.
would want the people reviewing it. But I just, and I think that what impresses each person is different. But for
Yeah.
me, I guess, I don't know. I like truth and honesty. I'm
Yeah.
impressed with truth and honesty above like fluffing up a resume, I think.
And really, like John said, it comes down to the manuscript. So
Mhm.
you don't have to impress us in your bio if this is your
Mhm.
first novel and your
Yeah.
career or life doesn't relate to the book.
Yeah.
That is
Mhm.
fine.
Yes.
This is my first book, or
Yeah.
leave it out entirely, because ultimately what matters most is your manuscript.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
would say as a like a if you're in doubt about the stuff you're putting on there, that one sentence, title of manuscript, whatever that will be, is my first novel. Or and that's it. If that's all I see, because also keeping in mind the query letter should be under a page.
Oh.
And so what that means, if you only have a one line for the bio, that means you have more space to write a really a good blurb.
Mhm.
Sometimes people artificially cut their blurb down because the opening hook is too long. They've got all kinds of comps and stuff, and then the bottom part is so there's the trying to fit it all on a page. They'll streamline the blurb, but that's the most important part. So uh the only the only reason to include more than that, like maybe play devil's advocate for people out there putting their query together, write that and write nothing else, and then ask yourself, is there something so important that I have to put it there? And then if there is, well, then build it from there. But it's okay to literally have just that down there, because the purpose of the bio is to just, it's your place to say a bit more about uh
Mhm.
uh is
Mhm.
the person who wrote this and the stuff you've lived, is there something more to say about why you wrote this book beyond the fact that you've written it and
Mhm.
you're presenting it to me?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I'd like to know that. But if not, that's fine. We're not going to judge the validity of a manuscript based on how much that person has lived things or not.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I would not be published with you because I have not lived as a vampire, as the son of
Well,
Dracula.
that we know
So
of,
Well,
that we
not that
know
we
of.
know of. Yeah.
that we know of, I have not lived as the gay son of Dracula. I can tell you that much.
There is
So,
one thing I kind of want to add to that, though, and that
sure.
is there are some situations where I think you need to, I guess you'd want to be thinking about, let's say you wrote a book. Well, I guess, okay, maybe example, we don't really do a lot of this, but say you wrote a memoir about your
Hmm.
life. That is where the bio is. If you don't have a
Yeah.
lot there, and then, but I would think somebody who's been driven to write a memoir has lived through something and seen that I really want to write about this. But
Yeah.
sometimes people go to do that and out comes their life story, and then when they go to look at why they wrote it, like what they're trying to do is not aligned. So that can be a place where you get to the bio and you're like, okay, I trying to think of an example. Like yeah, no, my it's not coming to me, so I'm not gonna make you have to
Yeah.
edit this. But like I'm okay. I'll use the example. There is an example of something in our catalog. We have Prairie Heart Press, where
Hmm.
we published a memoir by Hank Dixon, one of our
Yes.
authors, who is
Hmm.
was a prison chaplain, and
Hmm.
it's all about his experience through that. But then, also part of that is he's doing a life sentence for murder, and
Hmm.
on parole, became a minister, and then went back into prison to become a prison chaplain. Now that's
Hmm.
super interesting, and that's the kind of
Yes.
thing that you put that in there, and it's like, okay, I get it. You're writing a memoir about prison chaplaincy. This
Hmm.
guy gets it. He's lived it.
Yes.
Whereas if he was just I don't know, a guy who's read a lot of books about true crime stories,
Yeah.
and I've always thought about this. So I decided to write a memoir of my life,
Hmm.
reading about.
Hmm.
It's like, really,
Yeah.
I'd
Sounds
read
no.
that and go like, okay,
Yeah.
like really, if I see a memoir pitch. So really, the genre has a lot to do with it. I think for a
Hmm.
lot of fiction genres, that's the advice about where you don't need to include much.
Hmm.
Mostly is true, but when you start
Hmm.
going into nonfiction or self-help, or that area was where your credentials are quite important.
That's where it would matter. Craig, do you have anything that you don't like to see in the closing, or did we cover
Um,
everything?
no, I think we covered everything. Uh,
I just want to
yeah,
make sure. I think we did. I
like
think we
we're,
got everything right.
and I think what's probably important to point out is that while we have all agreed that, there's a general structure to these things,
Hmm.
as long as it's a well-written letter, if you're not following it exactly, that's good.
Hmm.
If you can sell us
Yep.
on why we should open your attachment and read
Hmm.
your book, you've done your job. And so if
Hmm.
that means massaging the structure a bit, doing things a bit
Yeah.
different, while not doing anything outlandish that makes it stand out as like,
Yeah.
it's a little bit
Yeah.
odd here,
Yeah.
do it. Yeah, do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and I think that
Know the
that's
rules.
like that is there are there companies that would not though look at a query if it was out of order? Because I know that we would that doesn't matter to us. Like we would prefer it to be one way,
Yeah,
but we'll still look at it. But are
yeah.
there agents that are like, nope, this is out of order, I'm not gonna look at it? You think there's any that are that rigid?
I have no doubt there are, as to which ones they are, and
Yeah,
how like it's no, but they don't
yeah,
reveal their.
yeah,
We don't have a list of every agent's
yeah,
what
yeah.
they how they decide on things. So part of the reason for these kind of rules that have evolved and
Hmm.
become well known among the pitching, the professional editing and writing community, is
Hmm.
because there's all sort of ways that people have revealed, agents, whether they're being interviewed for a magazine or in a talk interview,
Hmm.
of like the people have pieced these together as where they said, I will reject based on this. And so over
Hmm.
time they've been able to refine the query letter, and yeah, the art of a good query letter, just based on working with all that. So
Yeah, I think so too. Sorry, I was a little distracted, so I'm sorry, I had to get something. But yes,
that's okay.
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
little pieces of things, so that is how we get our information. Is that what we said?
Yeah, I get pieces together, and so we
Yes.
kind of have a rough idea of,
Mhm.
if you eliminate all
Well,
these
it's so
things, this is where
secretive.
the yeah,
It's
this is
such a big secret. I remember
uh,
when I was submitting, well, before I was going to submit, I remember seeing everything and they were like, this is a big secret. Nobody knows how this goes down. And it's really true that, you don't
yeah,
really know their processes for everyone else. We only know
yeah,
our process. And
that's
I
right.
know our process is very nice. That's all that I know.
Yeah, we are the nice ones. So you submit to us, you're going to get a lot more consideration than,
Yeah,
I think, for I would even say the majority. And then of course,
yeah,
yeah, there are those really hard, like, because I
yeah,
think depends on, like, I don't know, just say a really busy agent who really doesn't need new clients. You
yeah,
really have to go far to convince them. So I mean,
yeah,
they could be the ones where, I don't know, they just don't like something about how you worded the opening hook, and yeah, boring. Nope.
yeah.
Or who knows what but I mean, I have heard that some reject that quickly. Like, it's just look at it, no, delete. I'm in a bad
Yikes.
mood today, delete. And
Yikes.
it can be like that. And
Hmm.
in that case, even if you did everything right, you might still be getting that. So but
Yeah.
if for those agents or publishers who are not necessarily that ruthless, but they
Hmm.
are really high bar, and they don't have a
Yeah.
lot of time, uh
Yeah.
you can eliminate all these don'ts and really make it shine. You're at
Yeah.
least, you might get their eyes over the whole thing, and you might have a question mark coming in their head
Hmm.
before they might still say, oh yeah, I don't really like that. Nah, not for me. But it's not anything you did. It's purely just
Yes.
that's not for them. And so that's
Yeah.
where you want to be. You want to be that even the really strict, uh high bar people are going to that question mark, and then ultimately, no, it's not for me.
Hmm.
Because there's so much rejection comes from
Hmm.
just having those don'ts in your query. And if you eliminated those, you'd have so much better chances of it's
Hmm.
then down to what you wrote. And
Yeah,
so that's down, and again, that's when I say better chances, it's still hard because
still hard.
we
Yeah.
don't have a crystal ball to know what we need to write that's going to be what everyone wants. So we're putting
Hmm.
our work out there to see if there's some people looking in crystal balls going, look at
Well, that I think this is good. That was all really good. I have to tell you both something right now.
uh,
So I am recording, obviously, and I just looked to see how long we've been recording for. And Craig, because we did not end our previous meeting, it
Oh,
says that we have been recording for 4.5 hours because we were in Zoom for, I have no idea how long John's been in here
oh
for.
boy.
So we're just gonna go through the conversation and see how far the episode ends up because I really don't
mhm.
know. Like,
Oh, okay.
because Craig and I we are in the same meeting that we were in, that we've been in since he got done with work today. So we haven't been on with you for 4 hours,
Oh,
probably 20 minutes or something. I
oh,
don't know.
it felt like a long day. Now I know why. Okay.
You've been in here for 4.5 hours with us.
Somehow
Yes.
time lord. Yeah.
um, so, but to take a pause before we jump in right into synopsises, or
Mhm.
is it synopsises or synopses? Which one is it? Is it
That's a good
synopsises or
question.
synopsises?
I would have to look
Synopses?
that. Like I think of I just usually say synopsis. I don't usually make it
Well, no,
plural.
I'm giving you five
But
synopsises.
I've I would want to say synopses. Um,
Craig, synopses or synopsises?
Synopses. Yeah, synopses.
We went
yeah.
through three synopses today.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to say it. See how it says synopses. Okay,
And I don't know
so
if I was
yeah,
right. I was just projecting that confidence you talked about earlier.
you did a good
Yeah.
job
Yeah.
because I believe you. I was like, okay, synopses. He says it's synopses. It sounded smarter. Before we jump into that, I think we should talk about the fact that we a year ago on this podcast talked about werewolves and vampires and how much we would like to see a werewolf story come across our desks, and I
Mhm.
have not seen one.
No,
I
me
have not
neither.
seen
Mhm.
one. Where is the werewolf
Yeah.
smut, people? Where
Mhm.
is it? And we did get a good vampire one. We did publish vampires. That was Tanya. Tanya's
Yes,
is a vampire one. Yeah.
Bloodlust by
Yeah.
Tanya
That
Torres.
one's a
Yeah.
vampire one. Do we have another vampire? Besides mine, you can't say
Besides
mine.
yours. Okay.
Mine is not. Mine is high school though, so
I don't think so.
I don't
Last one
think
I
so
think
either.
before that would be Sins of the Vampire by Brett
Yeah.
Collins, but that
Yeah.
was a couple years ago.
Yeah. So at this point, so it's a year later, what would we rather see? Would we rather see, and this is, let's just have fun. I don't know. Would we rather see male werewolves? Would we rather see male werewolves? Because John, did you were
Yeah,
you
four or
editing
more
a
is
foursome?
good. Well,
Four?
I'll get a bit into that. Keep going.
Yeah.
I can
So we would rather have, okay, well, let's just actually, you know what, this is going to go off the rails really quick. So let's just try it first. So, first of all, what would we rather see? Let's build our perfect book that we want to
yeah.
see.
I can make a suggestion based
Go.
on two in-person events I had back in the spring. At each
Mm,
event, I had someone come up to me and say, I am looking for a werewolf romance, gay. They are older than 18,
hmm.
preferably 30 plus.
Okay, we can do
So,
that.
yeah, werewolf daddies.
How many do we want, though? Do we want two or do we prefer like four or three? Do we want a soft romance or do we want a foursome?
We're an explicit podcast, right?
Yes, of
I
course we
want
are.
some like
You want
dirty,
four.
pounding, rough group
Like
fucking.
four
Yeah.
werewolves.
You
Yeah.
need four for,
John,
yeah, because three works, but four is better
four
for,
is better.
I mean,
Okay.
five makes a group more than four.
I'm trying to figure out there's five. Hold on, I gotta line them up in my
Well, what's funny is because when you're putting the sum, the short form, it's mm to m. So if it's four, it's mm, and so
Mhm.
if it's five, it's mmm. Which when I see that in my email, it's like
Mm,
So
mm,
I'm just
mm.
like, yeah, okay,
Yes.
this
Mm.
one's got a lot of groaning. I
Yes.
like this submission.
Would we want werewolves over vampires? Yes or no? I
Mm,
can speak for myself and say I still want vampires more.
We
yeah.
still want vampires, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But we don't get as many werewolf submissions
Mhm.
as we
Yeah.
do vampire submissions. Like werewolf
Hmm.
submissions are really few and
They
far
really are,
between.
which is weird because werewolves are a very hot thing right now.
Hmm.
People are super into werewolf to the shifter books right now. There's a lot of them.
And
We
there's
want them to
a
be
werewolf
shifters.
movie coming out.
Oh yeah, what is it?
Yeah, Wolfman. It's a scary
Oh,
one. It's not
oh, it's not like the Wolfman
there's
in
no
Frederick. It's
five
not,
werewolf fucking scene.
and it's not like the Wolfie in my story,
No,
the
no.
hairdresser, Wolfman the hairdresser. Okay,
So,
John, you werewolves or vampires? Which one do you want?
you know,
It's a
both,
foursome.
both.
Oh, or a
But that
fivesome, I
said,
guess. I don't know.
part of it is okay, of the two, I do want to see werewolves because we don't have a lot of that.
Hmm.
I would like to see more than just like like a standard romance, like more of getting into the multiple partners,
Hmm.
like so
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it border into polyamory. So not the other two are competing for the one of the love
Hmm.
interests, but where they all become a couple.
Oh,
That would be nice. I
oh.
even because there was a book I edited many years ago I really enjoyed working on, and it had four,
Yeah, we talked about
and
this a
they
year
were
ago, so talk about it now. You do it
right?
again. It's
So
perfect.
to go back to that book, and what I liked about it, I mean, I like the dynamics, the relational dynamics that can come in there when you basically have a four-person couple.
Hmm.
And I was, I'd even be interested to see if a writer wanted to try and push that one further. Like, what about a group of, because the thing of, like Craig said, you're going to get your group sex scenes like that's some
Hmm.
fun sex scenes to write, where you
Yeah.
have to do the choreography and keep it
Yeah.
clear and
Hmm.
hot, with
Hmm.
five people. So
Hmm.
there would be the potential to have one of those in there. But then, of course, what I really liked about this book that I worked on is, the author created opportunities for individual, like just individual couplings to have their
Hmm.
time together, and certain
Hmm.
different sparks flew. They
Hmm.
brought different things out in each other.
Hmm.
But when I said vampires and werewolves, I like this idea of creating a world that's more than just there's werewolves.
Hmm.
So it would be interesting where you maybe have some vampires there, and
I feel like
there's
the vampire is the boss. The vampire could be the boss of
yeah,
this
well,
whole
there's
group.
there's many ways you can go with it, but just to actually have both paranormal creatures in there, and it's not a
Hmm.
vampire book, it's not a werewolf book. It's really a romance, and it has both. Although, if you focused on the werewolves, we would be pitching it as that, but it would be with vampires, so it adds to people that I think when people read vampires or read werewolves, they're interested in both, right?
Hmm.
It's usually not like people reading werewolf books would be like, oh, vampires. But it might just be, I do know some people that have read a lot of paranormal, and I think they go through periods where they just get sick of all the vampire stuff coming out,
Hmm.
and they're more interested in what's coming out with the werewolves. And then sometimes they just flip, they're sick of the werewolves, and now there's interesting vampire stuff coming out.
Hmm.
So I remember, somebody was telling me that about how the reading preferences over the last like 20 years or so have kind of flipped, from one to
Hmm.
the other. So,
So
uh,
yours though, you want a relationship. You want like a 4 or 5 person relationship.
that,
You want all
yeah,
werewolves, or you want to mix it up and have like 3 werewolves and 2 vampires? Like, is
that
this
would
one
be
couple? How
fabulous.
many people are in? Wait, there's a thruple, and then what's a fourple? Is it a fourple? What's it
There's a
I
called?
guess
fourple
so.
and
A quadple?
the
But what
five
I'm
pole.
getting from this is I think John wants Twilight.
I think John wants Twilight,
Sort
but
of, but
just
I
with a
don't want
different
Twilight.
ending.
I
Like,
want someone that
you
will
want
redeem
Twilight,
what.
but they bang each other. Like Twilight, but they don't
No
compete.
sparkling, please. No
No.
sparkling. No moody teenager stuff. I don't want that. But no, I mean,
I would
definitely.
take the money she made off of Twilight. I don't
Oh
know
yes,
about
yes.
Sure.
Please send that our way.
Yes, please send us that because we want to take
Yeah,
money
exactly.
this. But no,
Hmm.
like I have to say, we endured the Twilight. Was there 5 Twilight movies?
There
I
were
don't.
so many.
There were
Yeah,
lots,
there were so
but we
many.
watched through just so that we could say, okay, we know what
Hmm.
this is. We know if where we think
Hmm.
it's bad, we know why. We've seen
Hmm.
it, and I have to say the thing I thought was cool, and that's
Hmm.
like I I found it would be neat if they did more with it is the world, the idea,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
politics, and the yeah, like working that out and then creating conflict between the groups. But
Mhm.
then yeah, I see. I why not have possible love interest between a vampire and a werewolf because
Mhm.
there's conflict there
Yeah.
potentially. Like I see
Yeah.
a lot of very interesting stuff you could do. And
Mhm.
I also would say, yeah, let's go for daddy werewolves. And
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna throw out there. This is a if Harry F. Ray listens to this episode, there this is personal.
Oh, Harry,
uh,
we haven't talked about you in a
so
couple weeks. It's
it's actually
time.
more
You're
than a
due,
request
Harry.
to pitch a book, but I would I feel like this vampire twinks versus daddy werewolves idea that I know
That
we were
could
gonna
work.
chat about which do we do, but I would love to co-write a novel with
Oh
Harry F. Ray where we
my
figure out
gosh.
a way to to basically do that.
Mhm.
So I mean,
Mhm.
it's interested me enough that I would even that's a writing project I would love to get on
Mhm.
with Harry F. Ray in particular. But that said, anyone out there who's like, hey,
Harry is one of
take
our
that.
writers. For everyone who doesn't know, Harry is a great friend of all of us, and Harry is one of our writers. So, for anyone thinking that John's just pitching someone out in the open, Harry is a great friend of all of ours and one of our writers. And I can't wait to hear what Harry says about this. I'm sure hopefully he's
Mhm.
excited. Wait,
Maybe
but
we'll have an
so
episode about it.
yeah, in this story, we're gonna get off track here. We have a couple other things to talk about. But so I'm sorry, is your story a romance or is this just smut? Because here, originally I was thinking this was just smut, but then you're saying you want all these feelings between all these people.
Yeah.
So you want an actual like,
Yes.
and again, this is why I couldn't come up with a word. What's the word for five people in a relationship?
Uh, let's call it a five
Uh,
pole.
A
Five
five
sure.
pole.
pole. All right, the
There's
five
five
pole.
poles if it's MMM.
There are five poles. If there are five men. Well, I guess five werewolves. Five. Are there five werewolves or are there vampires too in this? You said together, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's
I don't know.
possibility. That's a
Craig, you want love in yours or you want just banging? I want just banging. I'm not really into a
Uh,
five-person couple, to be honest.
I do like having some intense emotions,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not that's a romance or something different. I'm open
Mm-hmm.
to it, open to various possibilities, but I think I want a little bit more than just straight up banging. That might
Mm-hmm.
be because, I edit so much erotica and I'm
Yes.
like, I see
Mm-hmm.
several sex scenes a day and like I need
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit more in there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but if there's a real good bang sesh, I'm down for that.
Mm.
Yeah, I would like
Okay.
to see it like because the way we would market it would be MMM. Is that five? Let's just you're saying someone did five and
Mm.
as
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
romance, we would be
Yeah.
marketed as that
Yeah.
because the thing about that is as soon as the number of M's is a code word for readers of romance, they know just immediately this is that it's three men, it's four men, it's five men.
Yeah.
They know going in it's going to be it's going to involve a
Yeah.
more than two couple, and there
Yeah.
is a I want to say rather large readership of
Mm-hmm.
romance. Not I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about erotica.
Yeah.
That's I've not seen an
Mm-hmm.
like a purely erotica thing
Mm-hmm.
yet, but I know for sure romance is a huge readership, and that is a particular thing that at least when I edited that
Yeah.
series going on almost 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big thing then, and
Yeah.
I imagine that
Still is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so based on time, I think that we can switch to synopsises is now.
synopsis.
Yeah, the synopsis. People should definitely take advice from me since I talk so good. All right, so John, let's have it. Tell me what what are we looking for in a synopsis, or we could go from it the angle of how to write a good synopsis. Which way you want to go at it?
I could take a bit of both because, like, whatever the case, we're just going to touch on briefly something that
Mm-hmm.
is very deep. I mean, it could do a whole weekend workshop on how
Yeah.
to write a synopsis. So I'm just going to give you the basics. And so I'd say like both questions. So what's the purpose of it? Why do you do it? What do we use it for? I'd say that synopsis is usually the thing we look at last. And mainly it's like, okay, we read the query, we're intrigued, we go to the manuscript, we start reading, and then we just want to get a picture of, okay, where does this all go? I need to see a bit more, because the blurb is going to leave some mysteries and some hooks. You don't give the book away in the blurb. So what the synopsis is meant to do is give me a picture of your story in like 4 or 5 pages. It could be shorter if it's not if it's not a complicated book. But yeah, whatever, 4 or 5 pages, I'm seeing the full miniaturization of your story, where I could almost be like at a fireside hearing some really good storyteller tell me the story of what happened, as opposed to experiencing it, which is what reading a book is like. So so that's why we want the synopsis. And then that actually ties into how to write a good synopsis, because give the ending away, you should tell your story in miniature. It should be as compelling as the book itself. I say that's try and do that. If you that's how high the bar is when you're writing a synopsis, because I mean, if somebody is interested in your book and then they're basically trying to decide, do I read more? Do I take more? That synopsis is really where you can make your plot and your character arcs shine, and really showing how the conflict evolves, how the stakes level up, how it resolves, all that kind of stuff. And we want to know that. In addition, the synopsis is a great tool for you to, first of all, be able to write a good blurb, because a good blurb will follow from a very well-written synopsis. And it's your first line where you're going to discover if there's stuff about how your story ends that's just like, this sounds terrible when I summarize it. Well, now, okay, now take the synopsis, make it sound good in the synopsis. Don't forget you wrote the manuscript. Just make it sound good in the synopsis. And now that's your perfect way to kind of start planning what you need to revise. And so, yeah, that synopsis, a really well-written synopsis, like the blurb, if it's boring or something's bad, don't take it as, how do I change it to make it good? Say, maybe something's wrong with the story, and what do you have to change in there?
I never thought about that way. That's interesting.
Yeah, it would probably feel like a lot of work if you're written your novel, then write the synopsis, and you're like, oh shoot. But it's work that's worth it, because you're going to make your book better.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
right.
So that what we wouldn't want to leave out, John, because I've seen synopsis where they leave out points on purpose. Because this is not the place for an elevator pitch. This is not the leave me guessing what's going to happen. Like, I need to know everything that's going to happen that's important, that's going to keep like the main plot points that are going to keep it moving.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I use the analogy of you say you go and experience something. You know, I had a wild summer adventure in August, and I've been telling people the story about it. You know, like they didn't experience it with me, but that story is like you know what happened beginning to end, and you're like, holy shit. You know, like basically think of a synopsis like that. It's the way your book is the experience. It's like, it's the line by line reader's going to walk with the characters, see how the synopsis is the holy shit summary that would tell the whole story. And you know, I tell people about my summer story. I don't say, oh, and I almost died, and yeah, but I don't know, am I alive? Did I turn into a you know, like that. People need to see how it all comes together, right? So
well, that would be something. I had a wild summer. The end. They just walk
well,
away.
that's the other thing. I had a wild summer. It's like, okay, yeah, that's nice. So did I. But yeah, you need to like, I think that's just let's think of the synopsis. You are telling a full story, and you should imagine if you told somebody a story, you don't leave them guessing. They're gonna otherwise they're gonna ask you questions, and you got to fill in the blanks. So imagine you told a story so interesting that the person didn't really ask you any questions, because you filled in all those blanks, all those gaps, and you had them compelled. And basically it's going, holy crap, Wow. Oh, that's you want your agent, publisher to be having that experience with your synopsis. If you can pull
Mhm.
that off, that's good. That's what you want to strive for.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Huh. Didn't think about it that way. But yeah,
Mhm.
I've seen it where some important points are left out. And I've also seen over the top synopsis where it's like a 4-page synopsis. Like I've
Yep.
seen that too. So I don't think we want a 4-page synopsis though.
It depends on the genre. So
You
science
want a
fiction
4-page
fantasy,
synopsis? Is there
you
something
might.
you could? Yeah?
I would actually say really only get if the length gets over 5 pages, that's where I'd say you should be saying I'm probably being too wordy.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, sometimes if I mean, as long as it's compelling, I mean, it's just like some books are long and they're great all the
Mm-hmm.
beginning to the end. But I mean, if your synopsis is long because you're over explaining the nuances of plot and all that, that might be an indication that your plot's a bit too complicated. Or your awareness of your plot is, like if you have to, if somebody tries to explain to me how a video game works and they start telling me all these things about different level ups, and like I'm lost already in the first detour, right? And sometimes synopsis, when they get long, that's what people do because you're trying to dump the information in. And it's like if you
Uh,
in a story to someone, they would tune you out and they'd probably stop listening and they're not going to make it further. So,
mm-hmm.
fantasy science fiction, if there's just a little bit more that goes on in the character arcs, I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
it's well done and as long as it's always grounded in what's happening to the characters, they can go into the 4 page mark. I like to see a synopsis that's somewhere between 3 and 4. I rarely see them get down to 2. But if it's not a complicated plot and pretty straightforward,
Mm-hmm.
it's easier to streamline down to two
Yeah.
pages if you have to. So
Mm-hmm. So we're
But
just
it's
going through the story,
also,
right? Yeah, go
yeah, and
ahead.
it's also like related to the length of the story, right? So if you're
Mm-hmm.
writing a 60,000 word romance, that
right.
I don't say this in a way to like put down romance because I write romance. It's not that complicated versus
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah,
futuristic hard sci-fi.
that's right.
You probably don't need more than 2 pages
Yeah.
for a romance at 60,000 words.
Yeah.
And like I think what Kelly is sort of getting at with 4 pages getting a little too long is for those 60,000 word romances,
Oh
when it
yeah.
gets to 3 or 4 pages, you're probably including too many unnecessary
Yeah.
details,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
as you've said, over explaining things, and you really just need to focus on what are the core details that make this exciting, but also make it simple that they can follow the synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was it.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. That was it.
Okay.
That was it. Okay. So I think that's it, right? You want
Yeah, I
so
think
you know
so.
we have well, hold on, we have questions though. Hold on. So wait, before we do this, because Craig and I have something that we've been waiting to get here for a week and it finally got here. We're so excited to open it. But if someone's submitting erotica, this is just an off question, just a one-off. But do they need to include all pairings like in the synopsis? So say, because I feel like there could be like a little bit of a difference there. So what if the main couples are, I don't know, maybe we could use werewolves here, right? Say the main couples are werewolves, but because I don't even know how to ask this question. This is so long, I should have written it out. Don't we sign erotica for different reasons than we would sign like a regular romance novel? Because we're signing it for heat level, no? More so than for just the story? Yes?
Yeah, if it's erotica, we're looking at heat level.
Right.
We're
So
also
would
looking at, is it like kinkier? Because if it's
mm-hmm,
sort of like vanilla erotica,
mm-hmm.
that can be a di bit difficult to
Yeah.
sell.
Yeah.
So we're looking at like, is there something different about this? Is it kinky? Does it
Yeah.
get into some fetishes?
Yeah.
Things like
So
that.
for that, in that type of a synopsis, we would almost want more detail. We'd want to know, like, even if there were like side couples that didn't really impact the overall story, we'd kind of want those in there because for an erotica novel, we kind of want all the spice thrown in, right? So like we'd want that in a synopsis versus like a regular romance novel. If there were side couples that didn't really make much of a difference, we could leave those out. Do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah, and I would agree.
Yeah.
I don't know if John feels the same, but yeah, if you're selling a book that is about spice and heat
Yeah.
and so much erotic
Yeah.
variety, you
Yeah.
probably want to like include all of that in the synopsis so that we know,
Yeah.
oh, there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yeah. That makes sense,
Yeah.
right? You got what I was
Yeah,
asking?
I
Yeah.
get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if John agrees or has a different opinion.
Whatever
Hmm.
makes your book interesting to the people who it's targeted for, it should
Hmm.
be in there. So if you're writing erotica and you're targeting people that want all kinds of kinky sex
Well,
and all that, then of
I don't know.
course you're going to be a little bit more featuring what happens that way. Whereas if you're targeting romance readers who want the relationship and also they want to know what kind of peril or conflict are they going to face as they get through, well, then I mean, you could definitely include some sex details and as you're telling about some sex scenes if they're good, but
Hmm.
all of the different sex acts not as prominent in that kind of synopsis. So
Well, we have our packages and they are related to our book, which targets both of those audiences that love romance and audiences that love erotica, because we have included everything in
Oh, do we
cookies.
have the same packaging? Do you
We
have
do,
Thursday
we're
Night Football
twins.
on
Yeah,
Amazon
it's
Prime?
on
Okay.
Prime. Look, Bessie, it's the same. Um, I almost just forgot the name of our book. Cookies, Candles, and Cute Bots for Christmas
Yeah.
by one Cameron D. James and one Cali Kitsu. Ooh, comes out
Mhm.
November 1st. Look, John. Oh, look, it's the same. I'm so excited.
Serious
I'm so excited.
packaging.
this
I know, serious.
This one doesn't open as easily.
No, it doesn't. Hold on, I'm trying to get it
Oh,
open.
it rips easily, but not as nicely. Oh, and
Well,
both cats think I have cat treats.
that is not a cat treat, guys. Hold on, I can't get mine open. All right, hold on. Let's see. Oh man, they're all like individually out. They're
Yep.
not in one bag. There's dicks everywhere.
I thought it was dicks. It looked like a book at first. I thought, wait, is that an arc of your
So there are
Bessie.
multiple things, but yeah, there are dicks,
Yeah.
cookie cutters. These
We're
are
gonna
cookie
be
cutters for the
Oh
listeners at
boy.
home.
yeah, for the listeners at home. One of the so our story revolves around a baker and a candle maker. And so during one of the scenes, because we have lots of festive fun in here, along with lots of festive banging, there's so many festive sex acts in this story. But wait, Craig,
Some of
what's this
which,
one?
some of which are depicted in the other cookie cutters.
What
So
is
this one
this?
is doggy style.
Then I
Oh,
dropped
This
one.
one is, I believe, reverse cowboy or reverse cowgirl because there are breasts on the person on top, and the
Wait,
cat is
show me which
very
one you
interested.
have. What's this one? Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's this? This is just a doggy style one, right?
That's the doggy style. So
What's
this is
this though?
girl, I guess.
What is this?
Well, I think one is cowgirl and one's reverse cowgirl because they're the same, but the boobs are
Oh,
on one side and the
oh,
other.
I see the boobs.
And then this one, I
I
believe,
thought it
is
was a weird,
missionary.
I thought it was a weird penis, this one. It's like, what is this? Hold on. So yeah, so we make in the, oh, I see. Wait, how does this one go? How does this one go? What's this?
Uh, cat is
Looks like
walking on my computer. I
a
hope everything's
uterus.
okay.
I don't know what it is. What is this one?
The flat is the bottom. He's lying on the floor.
Oh, I see him. Okay, there he is. Yeah, so he goes that way. Anyway, we make dick cookies in the story. So we're making cookies at nighttime and we make dick cookies. So we are gonna make dick shaped cookies. What's this though?
The one that's like a V,
It
I
looks
think
like a
that's a
tree.
missionary. I think it's missionary because you've got the two heads here.
Let me
The
see.
one person
Yeah,
is
I
lying
guess
on the
so.
floor. This is a butt here.
This is kind of hard to see. Like can't really make sense of this one to be
Yeah.
honest. I see
No,
what you see, but like
I think the one that really just is the clearest is the doggy style.
yeah, I think so too. But I think we're just gonna stick with the dicks, to be
Yeah.
honest. I don't think we're gonna. Oh, look!
Yeah.
Representation matters.
I seem to remember Rod Luhano saying that we need micro dick
He
representation on that
did.
episode.
So we can make this one, and then we'll also make this one.
We'll make
So
the little
when
ones for Rod.
we'll make the little ones and make him happy. We'll make this one. He said we need a representation, and we want to make our
That
readers
is
happy.
quite the difference.
It's quite the difference is right. But so is this what it would look like, do you think? In real life?
Uh, maybe.
Come on, you never
I
saw
will
one?
have to
Well, how many
I'll have to
inches?
have a lot more hookups and I'll let you know.
How
No.
many
Oh,
inches is that? What would your guess be for the inches?
for
This
this
is
one,
probably an inch and a
this
half,
is
the
real
small one.
tiny.
That's an inch and a half. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
considered
A
Like this part
micro?
is probably an inch and a half. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's getting into the shorter side of the ranges. I mean, I think they probably could be smaller, but that
We're
Although
talking about micros, but this is not
the
really that long.
the
This is
big
just
one,
girthier.
yeah, the big one is not that much longer. It's just
yeah.
girthier and the
It,
balls are bigger.
yeah, it's not long though. I'm kind of just, I don't want to say I'm disappointed, but we could, Craig, we could try and stretch it out. Maybe when we get the
Sure.
dough, we'll try and like,
Oh,
we'll
like
make
pick
the
the cookie
balls.
up and stretch
Yeah,
it out.
we'll
Yeah.
make the balls and then we'll just like drag it out and then just shape it. So yeah, so we're gonna make these as part of our book release for our book that's coming out on November the 1st, which we are super
Mhm.
excited about. So John, if you're around and you want to decorate some cookies, you can
I am up for that.
come toss some frosting on the cookies with
Mhm.
Craig while he's making them. We'll see. But yeah, our story is going to be out. It won't be out by the time this comes out because this is on Monday, but it will be out next week.
Yeah.
Comes out next Friday, November the
Well, this comes
1st.
out on Monday,
Yeah,
the
so Friday.
20, yeah, so
Yeah.
Friday. Yeah.
So it
This
comes
week,
out on, okay,
this
yeah.
week, according to people who are listening.
This week, as you're listening, it comes out on Friday. Yeah, because
Yeah.
today is Monday podcast time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll be out on Friday. Yes. So definitely pre-order it. And if you want the paperback, that will be ready on Friday. And the paperback is so cute. John, did you see how it came out? Did you see our
Mhm.
post that we did today? Oh, we showed you last night,
I
right?
have not. Well, actually, I haven't been
Oh,
in Instagram since.
we showed you in Zoom last night though. Remember we showed
Well,
you
yeah,
the
what I saw yesterday.
yeah,
Yeah, if you're talking about that, I
yeah.
really like that.
So cute, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
we're super excited about it. But yes, we have festive felching in our story. Isn't that wonderful? We came up with
Mhm.
that term, by the way, festive felching.
I like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be a little longer, but they're so cool.
These are still like, you can fit this whole thing in your mouth.
My God, I am not going to do it. Oh, yes, my best friend just shoved it right in his mouth. I'm not gonna do that. I feel like there's lines to what my husband wants me to do. I think shoving this
Mhm.
in my mouth is one of Oh my God. But yeah, I thought they would be a little longer, so we'll have to play with them later. Well,
Yeah.
not later
Oh, I
today.
will happily play with sticks. So yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have to figure out what we're gonna decorate them with besides just frosting. We should make them real fancy. We can make like
Mhm.
fancy penises. They get like
Yeah.
all kinds of cool sprinkles and stuff. Make like little, maybe we can make bow ties on them.
Oh yeah, sort of like under the head, little
Yeah,
bow
yeah,
tie.
like a little bow tie around the We could like make the balls look like ornaments. I think we're gonna have fun. I don't know.
We are. We're
I'm
gonna have a
excited about it.
blast.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really excited. Looking forward to it. What else were we making for this? I feel like there was other food. Did we say there was another food? Oh, the chicken pesto. We might make your creamy
Mm.
chicken pesto too,
Yeah,
because that's
because
a part
one
of
of
the
the
story
characters
too.
makes it in the book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Creamy chicken pesto. Mm-hmm. Lots of creamy stuff in this book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Crazy stuff. All right. Anyway, I think that did we answer lots of questions today? You think we did?
Yeah, I think so. But we need to give him the final
Oh
word, right?
yeah.
The
Oh,
final
we're
thought.
not done with him yet. He has to do the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
let
and
me
there is
So,
one thing I can say, and it's very quick to
Well, you have to
sum up.
wait. It's not your turn yet. Your husband
yeah.
has to give you the prompt.
Oh.
Don't make
So
me point these
now
dicks at you, John.
he might like if you point dicks at him. As we come to the end of this week's episode, John, the guest, always gives us a final thought for the episode. So give us the most compelling final thought you've ever thought.
Mm, hmm
Oh boy. Well, okay, here's the thing. What I was saying wasn't the final thought, it was something we forgot to wrap up.
Oh,
Oh,
So, but it also works as a final thought. So
okay.
one thing I did mention, we were talking about how to write the hook, how to write the blurb. And I was saying it really will make sense when we talk about the synopsis. So
Mhm.
one thing I've used to describe the process of making a blurb and hook from the really well written synopsis is imagine it's like an accordion. So you write this great synopsis, and then you're going to shrink it down so you can cut stuff out, and you'll find most of your blurb is in there. You might have to tweak a few things, but mostly the process of writing that great synopsis will, when you shrink it down to a few paragraphs, you've got and actually a lot of the end you won't give it away, so but most of the stuff will be there. And then once you have that great blurb somewhere, shrink that down further, like the accordion going all the way, and then out of there you might be able to squeeze out your hook. So yeah, that was the one thing we did, I didn't elaborate on because we didn't talk about synopsis, but I think that accordion thing is a good little trick for writers.
Yep.
I don't know if that's the best thought I've ever had, but it's a good thought to close off with, I think.
It was a great thought. It was a great thought. I absolutely was not thinking about anything else shrinking and
Not like
expanding.
micro synopses.
It was. I could not keep it together. I'm literally crying because I was trying so hard not to interrupt you. Were you not doing that on purpose?
No, but I just realized that I guess if I'm working with an erotic, so in my client work where I do this stuff with people, if I'm working with an erotica writer, I'll, instead of the accordion, it will be, okay, big dick. Imagine it just gets shorter.
That's what I was imagining the whole time you were doing it. That's why I was crying here.
Into a micro penis. Just what's all packed into that micro penis?
Yes, that's what I was picturing, and I'm like, because we just went from talking about the dicks, and then you are doing this with your hands, and you're like, and so it's shrinking, and I was like, I couldn't even hold it. I had to put my face off camera because I couldn't watch you doing it with your hands anymore. And yes, the accordion that's a very, very good. It's a good way to explain it, just not a great way to explain it to someone who is just thinking about dicks and them expanding and growing and things. So yeah, that was great though. That's good example. Good job. It was a great thought, really. Honestly, it was really good. And that does make a lot of sense to think about it that way. It also makes a lot of sense to think about it the other way. But the other way, no, it doesn't, because the other way you just always want it this way. We don't really want it this way.
True, and also would imply that it's like it's done its job and it's not as it's finished by the time you get to the blurb, and then it's
the shrinkage by the time it's
forgotten what it wants to do for a while. That's the
not in our story. It doesn't.
But as it goes with this podcast, though, it's good to have something profound and funny at the same time.
That's right. Well, thank you, John. That was super fun, and we're really glad that we got to spend our Podiversary with you. This is
pod anniversary cast.
Oh, hello, Shaker. Yes, sir. He's looking at us very seriously right now. He's watching. Hello, yes. Happy Podiversary to you too. Oh, never mind. All right. Yes. So thank you very much, John, again for hanging out with us. This was really fun. And I think that's it. Then we got to do coffee with Kelly and Craig, and John's going to go to the gym and I'm going to write with Craig, I think. Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like the plan.
Yeah, that's the plan. Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. Thanks, John.
Glad to spend the anniversary together.
Yeah, it was super fun. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Now it's time for coffee with Callie and Craig. I
had a good time.
I had a good time. It's always fun when John hangs out with us.
Yeah, it is.
It is. It really is. And he always teaches us such good stuff. I really, honestly, I'm sorry. I feel really bad. I was laughing during the accordion thing because that was actually really cool way to explain it. Having it stretched out and then shrinking it down. But yeah, hopefully this will provide useful for some people. I know it was useful for me.
Yeah. And I think something that we kind of skirted around in that episode that I think is good to put out here for listeners is that being rejected doesn't mean your book is bad. It also doesn't mean your query is bad. It just means, it usually just means that your book is not the right fit for what they're looking for right now. So, for example, there are books that we have turned down that I know are good, but they're just not right for what we do. And I've seen some of those books that we've turned down go on to be published elsewhere, do very well, and Last I checked, one of them even won a few awards. Did we make the wrong choice in rejecting it? No, it's
No.
just we were not the right publisher. That book probably would not have had that success with us because we
Hmm.
didn't have that book's audience to make it succeed.
Hmm. Well, and yeah, it is all about the audience too. And that's what the
Mhm.
publisher has to consider. So
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
very
like
good point to bring up. Yeah.
we've got certain audiences and we know certain books will do very well with our audience. And
Hmm.
then we've seen from experience certain other types of books don't do well with us because we don't have that audience. And that's true of every publisher.
Yeah.
There's stuff that I know does well with us and our authors have said, "Oh, I've also published similar stuff at this other publisher. It doesn't do so well there. They don't have that same audience." So it's
Yeah.
the same for everybody.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, even if, no, yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. I was just thinking about, like, what if we got like a rush on werewolf erotica and we had like five of them? We wouldn't want to sign like 20 of them. So your werewolf erotica could, well, that's why I was stopped myself
Yeah.
because I was like,
But
well,
then
no, we'd probably sign all 20 of them.
yeah, and then we develop that audience. So
Yeah.
if there are
Yeah.
20
Yeah.
fantastic books, we will
Yeah.
take them, we will find that audience,
Yeah.
and we will be the next werewolf publishing house.
That's right. That's why I stopped myself. That's why I was like, well, actually, I think we would do that. Yeah, no,
Hmm.
it makes sense. And I'm really excited because our book comes out on Friday and we worked
Yes.
super duper hard on it and we had so
Mhm.
much fun. And I know our editor has had fun reading it. I think.
Oh, she has.
Yes.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
listeners at home, we, because of timing of things, we had the editor do a bit of a rush job. Not a rush in terms of like poor quality, but like
Mhm.
6 hour days
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
of
It was a,
editing multiple days in a row.
yeah, yeah, we did. For reasons that we won't say on this podcast that were nobody's fault.
Nope, nobody's at all.
Nobody's fault at all. But it is a great story. And if you are into cute guys falling in love and having sex every other page, then I say you should read this book.
Well, basically, if you're into cookles,
Ooh.
wow, it's late in the evening.
We are
If
making
you're into,
cookles.
we are, if you're into cookies, candles, cute butts, or Christmas, we have all four in this book. So
We
this book is
absolutely
for
do.
you.
But we absolutely cannot over stress how much sex is in this book.
Oh yes.
Like, we're not being silly. Like, we're being very, very serious. Like, we just want everyone to be aware that there is explicit sex in this book. And if
Hmm.
that is what you want to read, then yeah, read this book. And if you are the least bit not into reading sex, then buy the book to support us and don't read the book.
Yep, I agree. Or if you're not into sex, you could buy Broderick, Gay Son of Dracula, and
Or
Frankenstein Builds a Boyfriend.
that's right. That's right. Absolutely, you
To
could.
support both of us still
That's
and get
right.
fantastic books.
Yeah, that's right. Look at that. We have options for everything.
Hmm. There we go.
Amazing. I can't wait. All right. So now why don't we tell people where they, oh, and that means we're making nachos this week.
We are. Yes, we do
That's,
release day nachos. Do you want to do
that's
the
right.
ones with the
Oh yeah, with the
refried beans
refried
in them?
beans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are
Okay.
the best ones.
They
We
are.
need to
I
put that
agree.
recipe out there too. I forget where we got it from, but we'll have to credit the
Yeah, we'll
site
have
we
to
got it
dig
from. I
it
know it was
up.
on Pinterest. And then that, and we were going to make those pumpkin scones. So we'll have to look at the pumpkin scone recipes too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some pumpkins sitting here in the kitchen that I can chop
Mm-hmm.
up and roast and puree and make scones from that.
Yeah, that'll be fun. All right, cool. Now, Bessie, you gotta tell people where to find us.
I think I'm getting this now. So you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and Twitter or X, depending on what you want to call it, at Cali Craig Talk. That's CaliCraigTalk.
Yeah, perfect. And for more information on the services that John offers through Story Perfect Inc., you can go to
Editing. Yeah,
www.storyperfecting.com.
you got
Yes,
it. Storyperfectediting.com.
storyperfectediting.com. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. This was super duper fun.
Yeah,
See
I
you
had a
later.
blast. Thank
Me
you.
too. Yeah. And happy Podiversary.
Happy pod anniversary cast. I'm sticking with that.
Hot anniversary cast. Yeah, I like it. All right. Bye. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. I've been talking too much.
Bye. Bye, Craig. I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. What? Bye for real. Bye.
Bye-bye-bye-bye-bye-bye.
I thought you weren't gonna do it. I was so prepared. You make me laugh every time this. Okay, bye for real. Bye. Bye.